miraculously on the behalf of Israel. Its focus is the God of the covenant who works out his divine purposes in human history. The psalmist saw the hand of God in the events of Jewish history, and this was the kind of encouragement the struggling remnant needed to hear. He reminded them that they were God's chosen people and that God works according to his schedule, not theirs. Beginning with Egypt, the Lord had already revealed his power over the nation, and he will always keep his promises. Remembering these truths of God brings encouragement to God's people at any and every time in history, and it brings us encouragement today as well. This psalm points us to the truth that because God has been faithful in the past, we can trust him to be faithful now and in the future too. When things seem difficult or confusing, we can hold on to the moments of God's faithfulness in our lives. We need to celebrate these moments. We are to make God's work known to the world by praising him day and night, no matter what. And we'll go ahead and start in verse 1 together. Give thanks to the Lord and proclaim his greatness. Let the whole world know what he has done. Sing to him, yes, sing his praises. Tell everyone about his wonderful deeds. Exalt his holy name. Rejoice, you who worship the Lord. Search for the Lord and for his strength. Continually seek him. Remember the wonders he has performed, his miracles, and the rulings he has given. You children of his servant Abraham, you descendants of Jacob, his chosen ones, remember the works of the Lord. He is the Lord our God. His justice is seen throughout the land. He always stands by his covenant, the commitment he made to 1,000 generations. This is the covenant he made with Abraham and the oath he swore to Isaac. He confirmed it to Jacob as a decree and to the people of Israel as a never-ending covenant. I will give you the land of Canaan as your special possession. He said this when they were few in number, a tiny group of strangers in Canaan. They wandered from nation to nation, from one kingdom to another, yet they did not let anyone oppress them. He warned kings on their behalf. Do not touch my chosen people, and do not hurt my prophets. There are 10 essentials of life listed in these opening verses. Give thanks to the Lord. Call on the name of the Lord. Proclaim his deeds. Sing to him. Sing praise to him. Tell everyone about his marvelous works. Honor his holy name. Let the hearts of those who seek Yahweh rejoice. Search for the Lord and for his strength, and seek his face always. The joyful praise felt in these verses is in response to the wonderful truths of God and who he is. We are to call on God, we are to glory in God, and we are to worship God and God alone. Like Israel, our thanksgiving, praying, and singing are meant to witness to the nations around us and testify of the power and the glory of the Lord. An obedient Israel was meant to be God's exhibit A to the nations so that they would also want to know the one and only true and living God of the cosmos. In his sovereign grace, the Lord chose Abraham and made a covenant promise with him, a covenant that would apply to all of Abraham's physical descendants as well as to all of us today who are Abraham's spiritual descendants. This covenant will last forever and was made as an act of grace on the part of the Lord. Today, we are God's exhibit A. Even when the Israelites blew it, the Lord protected them. God is sovereign, and though he doesn't turn men and women into robots, he does rule and overrule when we disobey. His will is going to be done, and his plans will be fulfilled, with or without us. If we refuse him and go our own way, he will still bring forth his plan through someone else. It's us who will end up missing out on the blessings that he had planned for us if we would have lived in trusting him, in surrender to him, trusting him in his will, trusting him at his word. And we'll go ahead and continue in verse 16. He called for a famine on the land of Canaan, cutting off its food supply. Then he sent someone to Egypt ahead of them, Joseph, who was sold as a slave. They bruised his feet with fetters and placed his neck in an iron collar. Until the time came to fulfill his dreams, the Lord tested Joseph's character. Then Pharaoh sent for him and set him free. The ruler of the nation opened his prison door. Joseph was put in charge of all the king's household. He became ruler over all the king's possessions. He could instruct the king's aides as he pleased and teach the king's advisers. Then Israel arrived in Egypt. Jacob lived as a foreigner in the land of Ham, and the Lord multiplied the people of Israel until they became too mighty for their enemies. Then he turned the Egyptians against the Israelites, and they plotted against the Lord's servants. The author moved from the essentials of life in the Lord to the things God does for his people, his works, his wonders, his judgments, and his chosen people. The writer recounts their past with God, his covenant with them, their time in the wilderness, and the promised land that he gave them. God protected his anointed ones from the kings of the surrounding nations. He sent Joseph ahead of his people into Egypt to prepare for the famine. No matter how dark the day, God always sent a servant ahead to prepare the way. Before he became the second in command ruler of Egypt, Joseph experienced suffering again and again. Suffering precedes glory in God's world, and being a servant precedes being a ruler. Jesus suffered for us before he poured out his glory. He came to earth to serve, and he died to glorify God. Out of God's glory comes our redemption. Out of God's glory comes our salvation. Through our suffering, we realize how much we desperately need Jesus and his glorious redemption. God did not force the Egyptians to hate the Jews. He didn't force Pharaoh to harden his heart. The Lord arranged the circumstances so that Pharaoh and his officers could either obey or disobey his word. The choice was theirs to make. Their repeated disobedience hardened their hearts more and more. God sent the plagues to Pharaoh because he refused to bend the knee. The same sun that melts the ice will harden the clay. It depends on the matter. We'll go ahead and continue in verse 26. But the Lord sent his servant Moses along with Aaron, whom he had chosen. They performed miraculous signs among the Egyptians and wonders in the land of Ham. The Lord blanketed Egypt in darkness, for they had defied his commands to let his people go. He turned their water into blood, poisoning all the fish. Then frogs overran the land and even invaded the king's bedrooms. When the Lord spoke, flies descended on the Egyptians, and gnats swarmed across Egypt. He sent them hail instead of rain, and lightning flashed over the land. He ruined the grapevines and fig trees and shattered all the trees. He spoke, and hordes of locusts came, young locusts beyond number. They ate up everything green in the land, destroying all the crops in the fields. Then he killed the oldest son in each Egyptian home, the pride and joy of each family. The Lord brought his people out of Egypt loaded with silver and gold, and not one among the tribes of Israel even stumbled. Egypt was glad when they were gone, for they feared them greatly. The Lord spread a cloud above them as a covering and gave them a great fire to light the darkness. They asked for meat, and he sent them quail. He satisfied their hunger with manna, bread from heaven. He split open a rock, and water gushed out to form a river through the dry wasteland. For he remembered his sacred promise to his servant Abraham. So he brought his people out of Egypt with joy, his chosen ones with rejoicing. He gave his people the lands of pagan nations, and they harvested crops that others had planted. All this happened so that they would follow his decrees and obey his instructions. Praise the Lord. God chose Moses and Aaron to lead the people, and he gave them the power to perform miracles and signs among them. The author reminds us of the plagues that Egypt had to endure due to their rebellion against God, against his will, and against his people. In every situation, God delivered what he promised he would deliver. He is faithful, always. The 10 plagues were a demonstration of the power of the God of Israel, as well as a condemnation of the gods of Egypt. Egypt worshipped the sun, so God sent 3 days of darkness so dark you could feel it. The Nile River was a god, so God turned the water to blood. The Egyptians worshipped over 80 different gods and goddesses, all of which were helpless and useless to deliver the land from the plagues of God, the judgments that he pronounced on them. Jehovah proved that they were false gods that could truly do nothing. This was an incredible demonstration of the awesome power of Jehovah God. It led to the triumphant exodus of the Jewish people from Egypt, like a victorious army carrying out the spoils of a battle. God went before his people, led them by a cloud, opened the sea for them to pass through, and then closed the waters and drowned the Egyptian army. The Lord did not abandon his people after he delivered them. He brought them out so he could bring them into the promised land. He led them into the wilderness. He sheltered them from the sun. He fed them manna, Olive Garden, breadsticks straight from heaven, and he provided water for them to drink. God remembers and honors his covenant promises, and we too must remember who the Lord is, what he has done, and all that he continues to do for us. He will never abandon his children. He will lead us, shelter us, and he will provide for our needs. Even more, he will never stop loving us more than we can humanly comprehend. We can trust him with every detail of our life. He is our amazingly good Father. He is our perfect, holy Father. God's children live on his promises, not explanations. It is through faith and patience that we see these promises fulfilled. God keeps his promises. God keeping his promises meant much more for Israel than victory over the enemy and the acquisition of riches of any sorts. It meant accepting the responsibility of obeying God who had been so faithful to them. When we consider all that the Lord has done for us, we find that we have that same obligation today as well. It's important to pause in life and think about moments and times when we have experienced God's unthinkable, undeniable faithfulness. Those moments that we want to remember and never forget, the times when God miraculously shows up in our lives. We need to take time to give thanks to the Lord and proclaim his powerful redemption to the people around us. However the Lord leads us to look back and remember, the key is to press on walking with Jesus while remembering his faithfulness and singing his praises, glorifying his great name to the world around us. It's all about Jesus. It's not about us. He does amazing, powerful, wonderful things in the lives he's given us, but the focus and emphasis is always about Jesus. Thanks, y'all. I hope you're having a glorious day in the Lord.